Hey everyone, I guess we'll start. We're still a little bit of a small crowd, but hopefully people will shuffle in soon. And still waiting for Somnium. Okay, Somnium's here now. Great. So today we have Schiller joining us, which is really nice of him and should make for a really good show. Welcome, Schiller.
Yo, what's up, boss? How are you doing?
I'm living the dream. How about you?
Yo, we stopped by and got some KFC a little bit ago, so we're vibing.
KFC. I hope you mean Korean fried chicken.
Yo, I've actually, it's funny because as I've gotten older, I've been more open to trying other and different foods. As a kid, I was like, I'll eat craft dinner and that's about it. And now, living a little bit more.
Awesome. Somnium, what's going on? Somnium.
Hey, sorry about that. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing well.
Hi there.
Happy Tuesday. Funny's up.
So, usually we start off this spaces with a recap of what happened in the last week. So, what did happen in the last week? Number one, we got the reveal of irradiated buzzies. What did we think about those?
Absolutely nuts.
I thought the reception for them was awesome. It was really cool because I know a lot of people were saying, when buzzies, but the team seems to be quite living up to expectations in terms of the quality when things are released. So was super excited to see it. And I think one of the notable parts is that it seems they're trying to highlight the little like bags or packs on the legs. And I think that I don't know if we can say that's the alpha, but I think that might be the alpha.
The bags on the leg, something to look out for. Another thing that I thought was a little bit interesting was hanging out in the Discord. And this has happened a few times before. Like I guess a couple days before they promise delivery on something, because they promised by the end of January for the irradiated buzzies reveal. People like start complaining like 2 or 3 days beforehand, and it turns out that they did deliver by the time that they said they were going to. Just think it's kind of funny. I mean, they don't always deliver by the time they say they're going to, but I just think it's funny that people jump the gun and start complaining like 2 days in advance. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the lesson there is maybe just, wait
Wait
until
until the day
that
after, right?
that deadline has maybe happened. Yeah. Yeah, and then, if you're concerned then
Yeah.
let us know. But yeah, good to keep the vibes
Anyway,
up.
I think probably most of the people that need to hear that are probably not attending this Twitter Spaces anyway. So, just a little side note. Let's move on to the next item of what happened during the week. And one that I've been watching out for is this interview that Aaron did earlier today with Outlier Ventures on their podcast and in a Twitter Spaces. Did either of you guys have the chance to listen to that?
Yeah, I did. I thought it was amazing, and I think one of the interesting things with that is they seem to leak like a fair amount of stuff, and maybe it's not like massive leaks, but they seem to hint at a lot more. And I saw comments within the Discord and whatnot, and just kind of like my own thought. It was as it was happening is like it almost feels like there was more revealed within that AMA than some of like their own in-house ones. And I think that that's very interesting that they're trying to potentially save some of these, bigger hints or whatnot for kind of a different audience that isn't people that are already kind of like ingrained 24/7 in exactly what FLUF and Futureverse are doing.
Yeah, to be fair, I think everyone that is listening to the AMAs that are like specifically for the FLUF World community is probably also listening for the AMAs that are for a more broader audience, right? So maybe it's a better time to talk about things because it's
Yeah,
not like
agreed.
it's one audience versus another, it's one audience plus another.
Yeah, I thought it was a good space. I enjoyed listening in and learning some stuff.
It, I guess let's. What was the main takeaways that each of you had?
I can jump on that first. So I think one of the main ones was when Aaron was talking about the unland sale, and it was just an interesting choice of verbiage in my opinion because we've kind of had this question about okay, so there's boroughs, but there is also potentially more land in the future. Like we don't know. Like we haven't gotten the Futureverse white paper, but when he said unland sale, if you've ever checking out the boroughs website, if you just type in like FLUF World boroughs on your search engine and you go to compare boroughs, you'll find that there is a diagram kind of these boroughs or like hamster type tunnels that are connected. And it was making me think like not that the land's going to be deflationary or anything, but was that a hint at that aspect where there's all these plots of lands within the boroughs, but then if you attach them there's going to be lesser ones of that? Like is that a hint at that, or is it just something that's different where they're not going to have a land sale where almost every single other project out there has done that, and it's going to turn into a reward for participating within the ecosystem? It just kind of raised a lot of questions, but excitement at the same time for me.
Tom?
It's a very good point, Schiller. I like that one. Um, I would say just kind of the broader, like, I guess hinting at some of the bigger announcements that are in the pipeline and just some of the deals we've signed, I guess, are always exciting. Um, Whether known or not, it's just good to know that those are out there and that the team's working hard on, furthering partnerships and really scaling all of this and, really building towards the future. So just that in general, I think it's encouraging to hear from the founders and, you know, have them explain the vision and hopefully people can hear that and learn some more. We got Tybo on the stage. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Oh, hey,
Hello.
Cyber.
Um,
Did you
if you
want to
want
say your main takeaway from the interview?
I didn't get to listen to the whole thing because
Ooh,
it was on before I woke up. I did read the notes, so and one takeaway I got was Outlier Adventures is specifically a accelerator, and one of the things that they apparently announced or are working with Futureverse is being I guess like a funnel to onboard projects onto the root network, and that's super important for the the growth of a layer one blockchain is having someone that knows what they're talking about, able to give all of the benefits of what the tech stack offers in a way that you know comes from someone that's well respected, such as Outlier. So having them funnel new projects onto the root network is exciting because the more value the root network has is based off more adoption. So that's exciting to hear about, and I think that was a big takeaway in my eyes, seeing that being spoken about.
I guess my turn. So the main takeaway that I got from it, and that I get from most of the talks that Aaron does, so I don't think that it's entirely new, but it's also what has gotten me very interested in this ecosystem and why I spend so much of my time in it, is that there's two things about this ecosystem that set it apart from anything else I've seen in Web3 as of yet. One of which is that they have these existing teams that had been operating and have been redeployed to be operating in a different way, that are now starting from scratch. Yes, they've done a lot of hiring and have grown significantly, but they had a baseline which was professional. They have, HR departments in line, and legal and accounting and all these functions that are necessary to run a business. And startups that are starting from total scratch with people that may or may not have experience in doing that before, but are definitely starting new companies that don't have these processes and systems in place and may not have the type of experience and professional capabilities are at a severe disadvantage versus an organized structure that is growing very fast, which is difficult, but at least it had a starting point that goes back a little bit. Like it's not a total startup. It's just a startup. I mean, it is a startup, but it's not as starting from scratch the way that almost every other team is. And then the second aspect is they have a vision that makes sense. It is very difficult to pull off, but their vision on creating the infrastructure as well as a content layer to show proof that that infrastructure, the parts of the infrastructure, can operate successfully and make sense for the world to move in that direction. The fact that they have that vision and that team that is not starting from scratch and has professional credentials and all these types of departments that you need to run a legitimate business, as well as the plan. And Aaron said in this interview that they had hoped to get to 5 million users within a few years. And that's not a very specific goal because he didn't exactly define how many years. It is a real number, and it is a number that feels like somewhat attainable. I mean, there have been times where community members have been talking about like hundreds of millions, which seems a little crazy because we're at like, I don't know, low 5 figures right now. So, or maybe not even 5 figures. So I like the concept that there's this clear vision to get to where they're trying to get to, and that they're setting the goals at high but not ridiculous levels. So that was my biggest takeaway from this particular interview, because at times they've thrown out ridiculous numbers or have not given numbers at all. So I like that they kind of quantified their goal. And of course, it's a goal. It doesn't mean anything. They haven't achieved it or haven't come close to achieving it. But I like where they're trying to get to. Let's hear from Thor.
Yeah, thanks. We were just going to talk real briefly about that space, and then it was the comment that was, it feels as if, and even in some of the questions that Outlier Ventures was asking, was some projects' heads are still in 2021, and it feels like some of these other projects are still trying to relive those glory days. But the way Aaron was answering these questions and the way this whole Futureverse leadership is thinking, that's in the past. We're not going backwards to that bull run. We're looking and seeing what's going to work in 2024, what's going to work in 2025, and that came across through that interview, and that was nice.
Awesome. So I think that covers all of the news for this week, unless there's anything I'm missing.
Oh, just a friendly reminder, I was seeing a lot of 3D animation competition submissions for the Seekers 3D animation comp, so be sure to keep entering that. Been loving seeing the content coming out, and I'll pin some to the top so everybody can check it out and support.
Awesome. And I also posted the notes that NFT Bro made for the spaces that we just discussed. So let's move on to the next topic. Or actually, first, let's have Schiller introduce himself. Schiller, I first came across you. We first crossed paths, I think, pretty early in 2021. You were creating content for the NFT space before it was cool.
Yeah, I guess that's an interesting way of putting it. So I got back in like where it kind of went, and what I did was student recruitment. So I worked for a Canadian college, and we. My buddy was just kind of like, "Yo, there's this new thing coming out with NBA Top Shot, this NFTs, blockchain." It was honestly my first time looking at the entire space, and I got into it. And from my experience with recruiting and like a very small stint at attempting to stream RuneScape, I was like, yo, like nobody's really making content about this whole Top Shot thing, but it's kind of fun, and maybe we can do interviews with like community members and just whatever else. So I started streaming that, and honestly, it just kind of blew up, and I was able to get partnered off Twitch within 2 months of just covering Top Shot. So for anyone that wasn't around back then, like it was really a monumental occasion, and I really attribute that to obviously the market that it was, but also the onboarding and the ease of that, of which it was. And so I've been covering the space for like quite some time. Ended up minting Bored Apes and Gutter Cat Gang, like pretty much everything up until this point, and I can't think of anything that's really impressed me as much as what Futureverse and everything around that has done. And back to the point with the onboarding, I think that's probably one of the most crucial points for having people that actually care. Because right now, you can go look on Twitter and you will find how many other spaces about just general things of topics, or other, spaces like this that are about other collections. But why aren't we going to see those ones? Why isn't there more people in this one or the other ones? And that's because it's hard to find a big conglomerate of people that are all super passionate within Web3 about the same thing. And Top Shot was one of those ones that brought everybody together. And I think Futureverse is about to do that. So I've gotten as much into the ecosystem as I can. I've started making a little bit of content. There's some other amazing people already within the space for it. And massive shout out to you, Max, for doing this, and everybody tuning in. These things kind of start out small initially, but when things really start taking off, this will be looked at as one of like the most key and eventful things to tune into every single week.
Awesome. Back when I first got into NFTs in April of 2021, there was like no content available explaining like how to do anything. Now there's so much content available, but you were one of the only people that was creating content, and you had active Twitch streams. You were doing marble racing back then, which is now a thing in Atom. So let's hear from Tybo. He's got his hand up.
I just wanted to ask Schiller about his experience in NBA Top Shot, and maybe like your idea of and comparison of and the difference between the root network and maybe the pros and cons of mass adoption is the goal, but where with Flow and Dapper Labs sort of being siloed a little bit, and the root network is more about bridging the XRP community, the Ethereum community, and also the Substrate Polkadot community. Do you do you see any pros and cons to Flow compared to that? And maybe if you could share an insight on like the value prop of Futureverse because of how open it is compared to Flow.
Yeah, well, I think it comes down to, IP and whatnot, because I think, like, with the success that Top Shot had with everything, like, obviously there was the onboarding thing, but it was, people cared about it. And so you did have, like, a good conglomerate of hardcore NBA fans that people were there for strictly that aspect. When you're looking kind of beyond it, though, it's really a question, I think, of do we foresee the future of these interoperable blockchains? And if we do we see Root Network having everything that people really care about? Because I don't even think it's necessarily about like what's different compared to Root and Flow. If the future is multi-chain, is everything able to be compatible and seamless in that way, and then driving kind of traffic from that perspective. Because one thing that people don't realize about the whole NBA Top Shot wave was they like blocked withdrawals essentially, like their compliance teams or whatever. I know that there's a lot of effort, and specifically on the Twitter space today, Aaron spoke about how they've spent like millions in legal fees trying to set up things with like cross-border payments and just everything overall. Like there was like 3 people I think working for the Dapper team handling withdrawals and everything, and there was so many different issues. And I think people were kind of trapped within the ecosystem of not being able to spend their money elsewhere. And so that's a huge attribution to why that got as big as it has. And now we're seeing kind of like Doodles and some other things going over there. But still, there is like a massive hesitancy with kind of jumping on Flow for some people with the whole argument of decentralization, this, that, and the other thing. When I think like within a year or two, to. We're not going to care about any of that stuff in a sense, and it's just going to be who's got what kind of IPs a part of it. So I don't know if that necessarily answers your question. I try to give like a broad scope of everything from back then, but happy to answer any other questions.
So from what my take, like I remember like hearing someone saying that they couldn't like take their funds out. And I guess that's the argument for decentralization and permissionlessness, right? Is you always have control of your digital assets and your money. And when that gets taken away from you and you can't move your liquidity, it that's potentially perceived as a bad user experience. So, and I saw that as the biggest problem with Flow over the years. But I see what you mean. At the end of the day, it's content and allowing users to have easy access to that really is going to bring the adoption.
I think one of the cool things, and to kind of put a close on this, is when we find out more about the payment system, and if it's for sure like, maybe even like a same day withdrawal, and if it's like truly globally covered, I think that that's going to be like a monumental announcement. I think some people don't realize that, but if that everything around that system is squared away, that's amazing.
I think like one of the things that when you look at like CentraPass, CentraPay, immersive, like all of those things together allow for the payment rails to be more streamlined, along with digital identity, right? Like if you've got compliant DeFi and compliant users that can be tracked and um, you know and prevent money laundering within the whole ecosystem, then like what is the actual issue? At the end of the day, like the government just doesn't want people to do money laundering. They don't want like bad actors. And if people can be held accountable, then we can just get on with the decentralization and the ownership and just enjoy being in the ecosystem and whatever the ecosystem has to offer.
Awesome. One of the things I wanted to discuss on this, I guess, episode, are we episodes of a show? I don't know, is comparing some of the popular NFT projects, their business models, how they plan to scale, or if they plan to scale. Maybe things about how their metaverse might work if they're one of the companies or projects that is aiming towards an immersive metaverse-like experience. So I guess one of the, well, maybe the premier project in most NFT circles is Yuga Labs and Bored Ape Yacht Club. And maybe we can compare and contrast some of the different strategies and visions and ways that they go about things versus the way that the Futureverse goes about things. Schiller, I know you've been big in the Bored Ape community from the onset. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, I've flooded like almost everything they've done, but it seemed to work this far. So maybe I'll just start flooding some of our stuff, and we'll see how that goes. But I think that overall, like, it's interesting to see them having like such a large scope, and that's something that like when I kind of took a step back for the Web3 space and was like, okay, like what's going to transcend it? And I think it's teams with really big vision. So comparing to Yugi here, they've done a lot of IRL events, which I think almost every single one of them has had some kind of like massive issue with it, and then they're kind of going into this metaverse realm, and the big takeaway for it is the blockchain space is still very new. So while there's a lot of like in-person events that had small issues throughout each thing, they included different apps and things that included newer technology. And so I think everybody's going to have a ton of growing pains. But with Yuga, the way they did other side, like I think they really hurt their reputation when they did that land sale. And a lot of people completely forget about how pissed off people really were when the gas wars happened. People tried to save up. They were doing things like with their family. Like that was the opportunity for you to be able to onboard a lot of individuals, and obviously it didn't happen that way because the demand was so much higher for it. Now, for the actual metaverse game, I played the first demo or trip within the other side, and honestly, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. The part that I thought was weird, and maybe we could discuss a little bit further, was that it was a one thing. Like I don't know why it was like you had to be there for that hour, because if you owned another side plot, there was no way for you to experience that whatsoever. And I feel like that was just kind of like unfair if you weren't free for that singular hour.
Yeah. My take on what Yuga Labs has done to date and how they've been effective, not necessarily in general, but in terms of that, is because they have so many fans and eyeballs. One of the things that's most effective is to have shared experience. So, for example, during the first trip, I think there was like over 10,000 people. I think maybe even 15,000 people that were on it. So, I don't know about you, but I was in a group of friends that all have either Bored Apes or Mutant Apes, and we were hanging out with each other and kicking it. And there were so many other groups of people doing the same thing, and lots of familiar faces, friendly faces, and just like a whole lot of people. And that's kind of what made it special, because if you take that away, it was just, there weren't even ape skins that we were in. We were in some type of robot looking avatar that, you know, no one would get excited about. And the interactions were decent, but also nothing that anyone would get excited about if it wasn't for the community aspect. Now, fast forwarding several months to the Dookie Dash game, which is a game that they currently have running, where they dropped Sewer Pass. Everyone that had a Bored Ape or a Mutant Ape was able to claim a Sewer Pass, and it gets you the permission or the access to play this game called Dookie Dash, where the concept is it's one of those games where you keep going until you hit an obstacle and die. And the concept is you're going down a sewer looking for a key. So in
Where
that,
is that key, Max?
I couldn't find it. In that game, it wouldn't be fun except for the fact that it's competitive, because a lot of my friends were playing it and a lot of people on crypto Twitter are playing it, and wherever you go in this NFT space you hear stuff about it and it's popular, and that's what makes it fun, way more so than the gameplay, which is kind of like a, might as well be a reskin game that is like from like a while ago. It's not a particularly entertaining game. It's entertaining because of the community aspect.
Agreed. They get a lot of excitement and stuff from the community that backs it, and that's awesome. But I think there's a lot of things that I would change or have done slightly different. And it's cool to see that we're going to experience that for ourselves here with the Futureverse and the whole metaverse aspect. Because, I mean, we also have to remember that there's still supposed to be that artifact world or whatever, and what they're building, and just every other collection that's out there. Where are they going to go? And I saw somebody post on the Discord earlier where they had like a thingy art, and it looked like it had like a nice swoosh, and I was like, oh yeah, right, we have no idea what metaverse artifact is going to go into. And I was like, ooh, what if it is on the root network?
I don't know about that. Who knows? But I don't know. I like to stick to things that seem more realistic to me, which is that the Futureverse network is kind of not, and I mean, it exists on the chain. You can go to the website and you can look at the blocks that each take 4 seconds and see that it's in testing, and you can't really access it or do anything with it. But it's not real. It's not tangible. There's like plenty of networks that are real and tangible and exist. There's also, you know, applications that call themselves metaverses and have some form of world where you can go in and do stuff. And to be honest, I think all the ones that exist right now are failing to a degree. But the Futureverse one, you know, it's not even close to being ready to go yet, I don't think. So I don't think it's likely that an established brand would already be in something that's not ready yet. But you never know. But I don't know. It seems a little ambitious to me.
Yep, no, you're right. I think one of the things too, as well, though, is like, I mean, like when Flow came out, they had like, the Crypto Kitties, but NBA Top Shot ended up going with them type deals. So I think there's a lot, or sorry, the NBA went with them. Like I think we're underestimating what can be done, and I think one of the more glaring things is we've seen. I think in 2021 ish, there was a lot of people that came out and said that, like, none of the blockchains out right now are really capable of handling these games. And obviously, we've had people that have gone to, Solana or Polygon or whatnot. But I think there's a lot of games that are in development that haven't really announced where they're going. Like, is Pixel Vault's whole ecosystem going to be on Ethereum? Is like BYO Pills, is that all going to be on ETH? And I think Immutable X is taking like a decent market share of some of these games, but I think ultimately we're going to see like a wave of big announcements from different people of what chain they're going to be on, and I'm excited to see when that happens.
Yeah, I guess the biggest ones right now are Polygon, Solana,
Immutable X for for gaming.
But other ones that are coming up are Arbitrum and Flow is maybe making Wax. I don't know. There's beginning to be more and more options, and once the root network is up and running, I think it has very much the potential to be in that conversation. It could maybe eventually be at the top of that conversation, but I think it's a little premature to put it in the conversation today, given that it doesn't exist yet, or it's not publicly available anyway.
Yeah,
Maybe not the root network itself, but I think it's worth talking about the experiences that we already have, such as maybe the underground or burrows or those sorts of things, like the Cortex. I mean, there's definitely a lot of tools in the garage, like the environments that we've been able to walk into and interact with, that are pretty cool and will serve a big purpose on the root network long term, whether it's connected to that now or not. I think just showing the foundation of that and how that's going to be laid out to the community, I think is definitely something worth talking about.
I guess there are buckets of things. One is what the Futureverse is building as part of its proof of concept, which includes everything that we see, like all of these NFTs. I guess the main function of it is a proof of concept to show at a high level, when things are done properly and well, what all this underlying technology can do. And the other basket is a suite of projects that is the infrastructure that other projects, people can use for themselves. And I guess it's not fully clear which aspects of every little detail fall into which basket.
Max, I just want to echo your sentiment earlier about Nike is going to launch on Root. I think we're a long ways off on that. I remember way back when like Matic, back in its 5 cent days, like Reddit was on their testnet, and that was a fun thing to speculate about. But it took 3 years before Reddit finally came out and said, "Yeah, we are launching on Matic," but they're also over on Arbitrum Nova. So one hedge, though, that I think maybe we benefit from here is that the partnerships we don't know about but have been heavily speculated on, that IP can come in and launch via our proof of concept without having to take necessarily the brand risk themselves beyond, the normal Web3 pitchforks that we have. But I do tend to agree that we're a long ways off on big brand A is coming to Root as its home. I don't think that's realistic. And I think even Aaron, like today, maybe set that up a little bit, especially with, I think your key takeaway, and mine was the same, was that their target is 5 million users. Like that feels like a realistic number of users for the use case as we know it, not
Yeah.
for every
And
single brand is going to come.
Yeah, and it's not 5 million by like the end of the year. It's 5 million in a few years.
Yeah, exactly.
Is 5 million bigger than the entire NFT space right now? Because I would assume so.
It is pretty much.
Active participants? Or like people who have ever bought NFTs, I guess, or crypto.
Well, I mean, like I think there's probably 5 million people in the world that are into crypto. I was originally going to say that. I was like, no,
well,
it's going to sound real.
It is
like
more
NFT specifically.
Crypto is more, but
yeah, for sure.
I think a very large percentage of people that are in crypto, and I'm saying that with bunny ear quotation marks, is they've just bought and sold it on an exchange, or like one of the more maybe something that's not even an exchange, like buying it on Robinhood or PayPal or something similar to that.
I think what's exciting about the Root Network is I've seen games that were building on a blockchain just jump ship because there was just better opportunities and better tech elsewhere. And that might not always be the case because you don't need to be on the Root Network to take advantage of Silo, or you don't need to be on the Root Network to take advantage of ASM. But for someone that wants to just have the whole experience from payments to ASM to Silo and to the Root Network itself, it just there's a lot of value beyond just the Root Network, you know. And I think that's what is going to be exciting to see when more people understand and learn about it.
And I think one of the underrated aspects and one of the biggest problems is right now we basically force self-custody onto everybody. So I think one of the biggest mysteries I'm most excited to sort of peel back and reveal is what the heck the Futureverse Foundation vault is and how that abstracts basically all of the onboarding pain points away, at least in terms of self-custody, especially in the gaming sense, and especially because I don't think the gaming studios themselves want to take on the risk of custodying their users' assets for them. Like that's a big solve for X. There's a lot of market capture there, and I know there's other solutions that are popping up for that, but it's really interesting.
Yeah, startup.
Yeah. Yep.
I do agree. That's like I think one of the biggest value props for Web2 native people wanting to find an easy on ramp, having the self custody like taken away initially, and you know the whole idea of like, oh, you've got this item, and then you see 10 people talk about how they claim self custody and they learnt about it, and now they can sell this item, and it's worth something, and then more and more people learn about it because they see the value in learning it, but it's not shoved in their face. The experience and content is shoved in their face, and that's how it's always been, and that's how it should be initially. It should never be about the value of selling first, but the opportunity of offering that to customers is where the Root Network will shine.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very long, like many months, more than that, of gradually peeling back all these layers and showing them in reality. Right now, it's a concept, and it's a little bit more than a concept because some of the underlying companies that are being merged into the Futureverse have, you know, the functionality today, but they don't have user bases that are significant. So, and they don't have the functionality that is combined into the rest of the functionality that is described in the white paper. So I think it's going to be many months of showing that it works and displaying how it works and iterating upon that and bringing in type of people and projects and IP that can slowly grow it. I don't think it's something that's going to happen, you know, overnight, particularly quickly. What do you guys think?
Oh, sorry, I'll go quick on Tybo. Just going back to like the Top Shot thing. I mean, it got like kind of ridiculous within about a month span. So I think that there is a chance that if there is something within the ecosystem, right, where there's this talk about goblins, obviously there's probably a whole bunch of different mini games within the entire world. But if there's something that like really truly like sticks, I think that it could move quite quickly in terms of user growth. I think that obviously there's like a ceiling cap for like how big it could get at the time. But if there's something that's launched that does get a lot of people's attention and it's easy and fun to onboard, I think we could see some interesting things happen.
Well, I think the AI League, which is coming out in the next couple of months, is going to be testing the waters for owning a wallet on the Root network, having cosmetic items through the AI League, have a simple interaction with the mobile app. I think that's going to be the first showcase and use case of using some, not maybe not all of the tools of the Futureverse. So I guess we're going to see that in action, because when you say things are so far away, the AI League is going to showcase all of this, or like a lot of this, in a couple of months. So it's technically not that far away in some sense.
Well, I don't want to mean that everything's so far away. I just meant to say that the iteration will take a long time. But my question is to Schiller: if there is no viral moment or no viral moment soon, is that a failure, or like what does that look like for the um, future of the Futureverse?
That's a spicy question. I love it. I think that there is a chance that that does happen, and then it's kind of the question of is the stuff that comes out something that people like that maybe doesn't go viral, right? Going back to the Top Shot thing, I remember specifically when Roham, who like created Flow, Top Shot, and everything, was tweeting about the user retention rate, and it was some like astronomical number of like. I want to say it was above like 86% like per day. People were logging back into the site that had an account, and even if you don't have something that gets some 500,000 users, 100,000, whatever, as long as it's like an okay number of people that has like a decent retention. And I think content, this might be a weird take, but I think if you start seeing people making content about this, then that's really the chance for it to find success. Because how do you find out about this stuff initially, right? Like somebody could be scrolling through Twitter right now and they're like, oh, what the hell is this down the rabbit hole? And this is the first time they're hearing this, and there's like, what are these rabbits talking about on the stage? Sheesh. But there's I think that it's interesting your point about like if it doesn't go viral, does that mean that it's a problem? I don't think it's a problem as long as there's strong retention on the people that do get captured by its creation.
For me, I think the base case is that there is no viral moment, but I can say the same about the alternatives that we just talked about. Was there ever a viral moment for Immutable X? I don't think so. They just build a platform and they slowly convert, some people that were previously on another, like, or some games that were previously on another network, or not, or new games that are joining their network for the first time, and they slowly creep into the consciousness by being an option. And in a scenario where that would happen for Futureverse or for the Root network, if their technology is that much more, and one of the main points for the Root network is they're building it in total mind of the user experience. And if the user experience is indeed better than any of the other alternatives, even without a viral moment, it can slowly become, over time, the choice that a lot of projects or companies, or maybe big groups that are looking to enter Web3, big IPs, they might think this is the one that makes sense to go with. And then you slowly build that way without having necessarily a viral moment, and you still can have a lot of success even without that.
I think a pivotal thing, and I'll shut up because I feel like I'm talking too much here, but the fact that AI is as hot as it is in terms of like news and just discussion on a daily, I think that Futureverse is uniquely positioned because there is such a large component of it that does include the altered state machine protocol. And if that does find success, I think that like if I was gonna like place a bet or something, I would say that kind of the AI component of what Futureverse is doing is probably what will create the virality moment.
It's a good point. And even if my point on top of that would be, even if there isn't a viral moment, even if AFA, gets to 50,000 users and that's it, or less than that, as long as they prove their concept on how it works and that it works well, I think that is enough as is. It doesn't need to go viral for it to start to gain a foothold. All it needs to do is not be a lie, not be like, in a scenario, because we haven't seen what's under the hood, in a scenario where they're just throwing out buzzwords and the underlying tech isn't anything special, that's the bad thing. But a scenario where it doesn't find virality, I'm not afraid of that, because if it works and they show that it works, even if it's to a small or medium-sized crowd, if they prove that concept, then they can move on with the next steps and keep going with this as long as it takes to find, however you want to measure success. The only downside thing that I'm concerned about is it not working well and not being a good user experience. I'm not concerned with the user uptake. If it's small, I don't think that matters long term.
So, as a gamer, there's been a massive rise in these auto battlers where you don't actually play the game, but you strategize on where you place your pieces, and then the outcome happens based off the way that you strategize. So they're called auto chess battlers, and there's also like these big army battle where you set your army up with different characters and you put them in specific spots, and then the battle ensues and the end result happens. I think with the growth of AI and you being able to tinker with the capabilities of your character and make them perform better in different tasks and improve your character, I just see that as an easy fit to the progression of where gaming has gone over the last few years. And I could see it like a crossover of like, oh, okay, I'm watching my little soccer players play, and then you become invested in improving them and getting them to do better at certain things. And I I personally see huge potential in that. And with the rise in AI being like the talk of the town for the next year or so, and this being one of the first AI games where you can train your characters, even if it's a dumbed down version compared to AFA. And on top of that, it's got the FIFA stamp of approval. I just feel like it's all lined up to be like there's the potential of it being successful is there. Not saying it will, but the potential is definitely there. And it's exciting to see it, put ASM on the map, because it won't have everyone talk about ASM, but it's definitely going to get ears perking.
I think, like, if you look at Marvel Snap, which, there's speculation of Marvel and Futureverse being friends or whatever, right? I mean, that's a slimmed down version of an auto battler. I don't know if anybody's played it, but you play your cards and you score points and you level up and you earn gold, and it's like a 1 minute thing, but it's addicting. And next thing you know, they've got 40 million downloads and like win game of the year. Like, so that, I mean, I might be in the Schillerverse on this one, where I think that virality is a big potential, but I lean back to as well, Max, like, you got a plan for like that doesn't happen. But I think one thing that didn't get talked about yet is the fact that even if our content isn't good and that doesn't stick, we still have the payment rails with immersive. And what Aaron said today seemed to imply that there's some pretty big centralized exchanges on board for that. So there's just so many verticals here. It's such a hedged bet that it's hard to imagine a scenario where at least one of them doesn't stick.
Yeah, and going back to the conversation, comparing the Futureverse to Yuga, I think that that's a big difference. Yuga started off as something that wasn't supposed to be massive, but it became massive in large part because of how the community, that general NFT community, banded around it, and it became kind of like there's two parts of it. One, there's the project, the team itself, and then there's also the community, and they're both huge components. Where in the Futureverse, the community is important, but in reality, like, they're building it. Like, they have a team of 300 plus people that are doing lots of things, that some of which they tell us, some of which they don't, and they're like building this whole thing, and we're kind of along for the ride, and there's things that we can do to be helpful in that, but like, it's different in that regard, right? I guess not everybody respond at once.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Sorry, I looked away for a second and then everybody went quiet, so I missed the point. But I apologize, but I want to vocalize that I would have responded, but I'm an absolute fish. So
let me repeat the difference. One of the big differences between Yuga and Futureverse is with the Bored Ape Yacht Club thing. It came like a viral community thing where the community is doing a lot of what has made Bored Ape Yacht Club what it is. So there's two components: the team itself and the community. Versus in the Futureverse, the community is reliant on the team to build all the things.
Yep. Agreed. Great point. For anyone that doesn't know, yeah, like, so after the Bored Ape Mint happened, and I got the video up on my YouTube channel if anybody's wanting to take a look. Like the week after, there was a couple of us that were like, "Yo, like, we got to change our profile pictures," and this was before like that was even like a thing, right? Like there was business people in the space, like Josh Ong, for example. If you happen to know who that is, it was like, "Oh, I'm going to change my PFP for a weekend," and a lot of people were of that kind of mindset. And then we kind of hosted these different spaces trying to educate. And this was when, again, the space was super, super nascent and small. And then it just kind of grew from there because it turned into like an ape follow ape thing. And everybody's Twitter account, you'll notice on people that have been around for like a while on Twitter, a lot of like BAYC PFP users just have a decent following. You're like, why the hell is that? And it was because it was like an entire social movement. And because everybody wanted to support each other from that, that's what created. And I don't like, it's very, very hard for that to get recreated. So I absolutely agree with you that one of the reasons the success of all that was because of the community. But it's a lot harder because everyone's trying to do the same thing. And the only difference between our community compared to another one, if we're speaking plainly, is what the team provides us to work with. So I do 100% agree with you.
Awesome. Pufferfish, do you have the top 5 ready to go?
My mic working? Yeah, I have a top 5. And for the record, I am actually wearing a Mutant Ape Yacht Club hat right now.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I'm ready to go if you guys are. Good evening, everybody. This week's segment is sponsored by Eggs. Eggs. Either pay up or wait for lunch. Tonight's top 5. The top 5 reasons why your NFT hasn't revealed yet. Number 5, dog ate the metadata. Number 4, the guy who reveals NFTs is sick today. Number 3, the founder is not done binge watching Cobra Kai yet. Number 2, Fiverr.com website is down. Wah, wah. And the number 1 reason your NFT has not revealed yet, the team already has your money. Wait, hold on, I gotta pay her. Hold on a second. Let me put you guys on hold my rides here.
Thank you, Pufferfish, for another great top 5 segment. I guess moving on to the next topic that I'd wanted to discuss today. There sometimes is a lot of comments and concern in various forums, but most specifically the Discord. I hope Pufferfish is okay over there. About timelines and deadlines and whether or not the team is meeting them. And I kind of wanted to have an opportunity to separate fact from fiction and to discuss, kind of the nature of, are they missing deadlines? Are they not operating as well as we expected them to? And all types of topics in this, or subtopics in this general topic. So does anyone have some thoughts?
I guess one of the best feedback I've seen on this topic is if they're like, say that the team is giving these optimistic timelines. That's what Alex has said in the past. Like, we give these timelines and they're optimistic, but they don't always work out. I think that's fine if that's what's said, but I also think what would be better is if the team goes, hey, we were expecting this to happen at this time, and these are the reasons why we've pivoted, or this is the reason why it's not worked out. Just simple communication like that would at least allow the community to understand that it's not because that they're incompetent or they're pulling pulling our leg, and like, from the worst case scenario I've seen is some people saying that this is just some elaborate rug to the team just aren't adequate at what they're doing. There's just several reasons that people jump to conclusions with, and if there was just simple comms of letting us know what's going on, then I think that would help the situation. But at the same time, like, I don't think it's as big of an issue people make it out to be, but I think it still needs to be addressed in some way, shape, or form, because it is an ongoing issue.
Mark Lar, do you have an opinion?
You caught me at a rough time, so I'll have to buffer on that.
How about you, Thor? Any comments about deadlines or comments about people's reactions to them?
I don't know. It's tough. Like, they're doing the best they can. They're kicking ass. They're crushing these partnerships. If you could just give them a little more leeway, your mental health would be better. Their mental health would be better. My mental health would be better. Please just give a little more leeway. You've been waiting a long time. The bridging is coming. It's going to be the end of this month. Like, don't stop running a marathon, a mile or a kilometer, like, from the finish line. See the thing out. Like, you've been invested for a long time. See this thing to the conclusion. Come bridge assets over with us to Root Network, and then give it a fair shake. And I don't know. I think maybe some folks just need to, do something nice for themselves and close Discord for the night and go watch whatever's on Amazon Prime, just take a moment, chillax, check back in a few days later.
I have been watching something very good on Amazon Prime, but that's not the topic that we're talking about. But I guess one thing that I've tried to do, and I don't know how effective it's been, but I've been assuming that there's no way that they were going to hit a lot of the deadlines that they set. And some of the deadlines are like passing comments that are made in non-official capacities that are just like in the moment, that, like, if you're, a leader of the group like Aaron, you don't necessarily know all the the different things that all 300 employees plus however many contractors, you don't know exactly how long it takes for them to do every single component. And also, while people are doing every single component, plans change, things change. They realize we got to pivot from X or Y or Z, and that can also add difficulties in time. So I think what as a community we can do is stop putting pressure on one-time comments and only take into consideration the timelines that are given by official announcements, which we can assume have been vetted by more than just one person and are not off-the-cuff comments.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think it's important to kind of stick to what official comms are, not really like tweet type stuff. And I think the whole mental health aspect of it is important to keep in mind. And I think it ultimately, like, I guess kind of evaluate what you're saying and think like, all right, what's the outcome of this? How might this make someone feel? What am I looking at getting or gaining or accomplishing by saying such things sometimes? And you know, who's the audience, right? And are they going to be able to help you with what you're asking for or not? And yeah, I think just being kind to each other is important, and realizing that we're all here for maybe not all the same reasons, but ultimately we're all in it together. So it's important to be kind to each other. I think what Tybo said is valid as well. I think just like letting the community know and being as transparent as we can, I think is important. Um, and things like, if we said, let's say with Buzzies, they'll reveal by the end of the month, what's the point in going in Discord a few days before the end of the month and basically, concern trolling or whatever you want to call it, just complaining or I don't know, whatever you want to call it.
Expressing concern, let's call
Expressing
that.
concern. How about that? Yeah. That that it won't happen by the end of the month, or that you know that you're upset about that, or this, that, or the other. Like, let the month end and then maybe reevaluate that. I think using the ideas and feedbacks channels will be great, and debate channels for if people really want to get into it. I know plenty of people who don't come in FLUF General because they just have seen people kind of going at it a lot, or just don't feel like they, always enjoy it as much as they used to. So I definitely know there's a lot of people that kind of feel that way. So I think just making sure that it's a good vibe in there and it's a welcoming place where um, we aren't at each other's necks and nobody's making things personal, that sort of thing, and just making it, a fun place to hang out. I think that's important. And using side channels if you really want to get into it or have some feedback. And I think just keeping things constructive as well. Kind of like evaluate what you're saying and see if it's constructive or not. And if it's not, then maybe reevaluate what you're saying, or provide a suggestion as to what could be done differently. I think that's been done a lot, and it's been done in some great ways by some good people. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I wonder if you're not necessarily preaching. You might be preaching to the choir instead of preaching to the people that you're hoping get that message, because of the audience that is in this versus the audience that are potentially concerned in Discord. But
It's
one
okay. They'll
comment,
listen to the recording.
they probably won't, but I hope they do. But one comment related to this topic that I wanted to make is, I think it's definitely as good as Tybo's comment is, and I think a lot of us are all of us even wish they did something to that extent. What if the team operates as they have been? Is that really bad, or are we okay with that? Like, if they have the reputation for missing deadlines on several occasions, but when they do deliver, the product is consistently good, and maybe they're missing deadlines, but they're delivering quality, and maybe their communication isn't always great in our eyes, but maybe the actual product is. Are we cool with that?
Yes. Ultimately, that's all that really matters is the long-term value proposition these things will create, not meeting deadlines, because at the end of the day, like as long as they're continually building and they are releasing stuff, um, it's still benefiting us as holders that are getting the good quality um, assets and the good world building and the good story and the good lore. It just sucks when things are delayed, but it's not the end of the world.
Sometimes I think when I see some of these concerned members of Discord is that they kind of forget that the team also wants to deliver things. The team wants to succeed and get to mass adoption, which is their goal. And they don't want to just get to mass adoption regularly. They want to get to mass adoption with this way of decentralization and a lot of the other things that they preach, which include interoperability. They have a whole, section of the white paper about their like ethos, like their their company vision and moral values. So I think a lot of people might kind of forget that the team wants to succeed too. The team is not there to just like not do a good job. And the incentives are pretty similar for now of the team wants to reveal good buzzies on time, they want to have a successful summoning of goblins. They want to successfully launch the root network. So I think people need to remember that. Like, it's not just that the holders want that; the team wants it too, and a whole lot of team members are also holders as well. So I really think that the alignment between the team and the holders as of now is not all that different. And it definitely, in terms of delivering things, it's very similar. Both want that. So I think when the community, including myself, we don't know nearly as much as the team does or the leadership of these teams do. You know, it's easy to think that what's best. I'm sure a lot of community members are used to running businesses or being leaders in businesses and are used to or have expectations of them knowing what they're talking about and being able to make great decisions in these fields. But just starting from a point of knowing less information than they do, even if you're more of an expert in a given field, without knowing all the information that they know, it's very hard to understand all the decisions. But I think it, it just makes sense that given that you have a lack of information, maybe you should think, I wonder why X, Y, or Z, as opposed to jumping to conclusions. I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah, there was a really big message in the Fluffer channel by Nux going into a little bit of that. Like the team, like and I think Nux has also stated my job is you know just for me to keep my job is for this to succeed. So like, and it's just as much, and that's one employee of 350. Like there's people's livelihood also, wanting this to succeed. There's also like a lot of big investors that have yet to be announced that probably see the value prop in this and want this to succeed. So I guess it's taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture and maybe familiarizing yourself with all the moving pieces, and the delays is just one small part of the whole puzzle is something to keep in mind as well, I think.
Yeah, and it's just want to echo both of those sentiments and just say that as a team member, I definitely care a lot about the success about every company within our ecosystem, and everything
Well,
we touch.
isn't
So,
it all one company now, or about
well,
to be?
I mean, whatever you want to call it, Max. I mean, at the end of the day, I like not everybody is across everything and every. There's still companies at the end of the day.
Should we call them departments now?
I guess there would be subsidiaries or
Subsidiaries.
departments.
I like it.
Every subsidiary, I want to see succeed and want to support wherever I can. Obviously, I'm focused on Silo and Seekers, but we're all kind of one unit now. So, yeah, I think it's important to have the perspective that we all have is that we all want it to be successful. So, focus on what we can do to make an impact to make that happen. Um, I think that is probably the best thing that everybody can do. And yeah, just want to say that the team really cares and we have a vested interest in making this a reality and making it successful. So whatever we can do to get there, we're going to do it.
Awesome. Any other comments from anyone?
No, but I got to drop off. I don't know if you guys are still going, but Max, I really, really appreciate the invite for this. And it's fun listening. And I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for
Much
coming
love,
on.
Schiller.
Appreciate
Thanks for
you
coming.
joining.
Talk soon.
So do we want to keep going?
Yeah, for sure. I just wanted to pop in and say, everybody check out the avatar scan. I know they've got that competition running. I think, I'm not sure the exact timeline, but it's still open, I believe, and everybody should go enter that. And whether you enter it or not, I think it's important that people use their FLUF assets that have been provided and really like support the content that's being provided to us and make some cool things and show your friends, share some snaps, take some videos, and just have some fun with it. It's definitely a cool tool that they provided to us and really easy to use. So be sure to check that out, enter the competition, and let's share some content on Twitter.
Yeah, and just to say the end of the competition is February 8th, so you have until then to enter the competition.
Hey, so we've got Wilder, definitely Wilder here. Could you maybe talk us through on the showcasing of Seekers and ASM potentially in the gameplay trailer, and when that is going live? Is that in an hour or?
Yeah, what's up, guys? I actually arranged with Max to come up and just show that quickly. So yeah, we got the official gameplay trailers releasing in around an hour. So there's going to be a Spaces to launch that, and there'll be a team from ASM and from Seekers joining that, I believe, as well as a lot of our other partners. And then sometime throughout that space, the trailer will drop on YouTube, and it's an 11-minute in-game live trailer of what the world looks like to date. It should show off some of the assets and hopefully see some Seekers in there and some ASM brain, maybe some functionality of some kind. Who knows? I haven't seen it, so it should be good. So good for the partnership, and just cool to see some open metaverse action.
And that's in 45 minutes from now on Twitter Spaces. You can find the link to that pinned to the Spaces, and it will be starting in 45 minutes. You also have skateboarding legend Nigel Houston. I know Pufferfish is into skateboarding, and I've heard, without even being into skateboarding, I've heard of him. He's quite famous.
As he's got his own brand called Disorder, and they're going to launch like metaverse skateboarding, so that'll be part of Wild World. Eventually, it will be Nigel's Disorder brand.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Looking forward to this trailer. Sounds really exciting.
Aren't you guys tied into Beeple as well? I mean, y'all got some pretty good anchors over there.
Yeah, the owner of the Beeple 5,000 Days is one of the investors, so that will be showcased in their building that they're making in Miami.
We have Pufferfish up, assumedly to talk about skateboarding.
Oh yeah, when I heard you say that, I just hopped up. Yeah, Nigel's cool AF. I did meet him last year at Tampa Pro, and I talked to him for a second. Real cool dude. He took time to like stop what he was doing to make time for my kid and sign his skateboard. So pretty awesome. He also should have won Skater of the Year last year. Nothing against Tyshawn. I had to come up here. I'm a Niger apologist, and I have to say, Niger should have won last year.
Oh yeah, totally.
That's all. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Wilder spaces. I will be there. I hold some Wilder assets as well.
Awesome. So yeah, 45 minutes from now for that. Anything else that you wanted to communicate? Definitely Wilder.
No, I've been seeing all the FUD, and it's in Wilder as well. Like, it's everywhere. I think it's just bear market. People are getting, like, they're anticipating a lot, and it's slow to deliver, and it's, it's everywhere. And I think, yeah, just like really enjoyed listening to your space and agree with everything you're saying. We just got to keep holding on and just support our teams, and just it's no one's built this shit before, so it's going to take time.
Yep.
I also think it's important to realize it's really just January, right? Like, we all just came off holiday. We're just getting geared up for the year, Yoder just started. We're kind of just picking it up, so I think it's important to kind of give things time to develop and evolve, and maybe wait a couple quarters before you.
I will say, in my last job as a tax accountant, coming back from the holiday, the festive season, at this point we would maybe start to be taking work seriously, but we probably were taking work a little bit less seriously in the first half of January. Don't know if that's the case for other fields, but it's definitely a thing.
Yeah, it's like getting, your clothes back on after like a big night out. It takes the time to like adjust to the day, just like it would take time to adjust to the new year. I think that's a real thing. But on sentiment, I remember in 2019 the amount of FUD that came out for ETH and the roadmap delays, and this, it's like the same sentiment. Oh, ETH is going to zero. Like, they're not even building any revolutionary tech. And then you look at like where we are now. Like, ETH went to 4,000. Like, and the sentiment was back as more building was happening and more partnerships and more adoption. It's just like the psychology gets to people, and it's those that are patient and can see the vision and still hold on to that conviction are the ones that end up getting rewarded. And also those dollar cost average in, right?
But it's a little bit more than that, right? Because for ETH, what you're saying is true, but there are plenty of other products or ideas or projects that had the same negative sentiment, but instead of recovering and going on to do great things, have disappeared completely. So you can say that that's true about some things, but it isn't true about all things.
Of course, but the reason why I used ETH as a good example is because they were actually building good stuff, and they have a really big, vision and team, and they're top quality, and they've been around. And I would compare them to similar to Futureverse. These aren't just grifters. They're building something valuable and tangible, and I think we need to remind ourselves of the conviction of why we got into the project in the first place.
Yeah, of course, there's room for opinions and interpretations and beliefs on to whether their vision is good enough or applies enough or is going to work, or like how good their team is versus, everyone's going to have a different opinion on that, or a different opinion on different aspects of it. But yeah, in general, I definitely agree, but definitely also want to be clear that for people that are looking at the full picture of the Futureverse, some smart people can come to the conclusion that they don't believe in it, and that's okay too.
No, they're wrong. Just kidding.
I mean, they very well might be, but it's, it's not, the future is unknowable.
Yeah, I don't want to shame anyone for having fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's a real thing.
Some people also can look at a different ecosystem where maybe, Taibo, I'm using you as an example, maybe you look at another ecosystem that has, legitimate people working for them and an idea and a game plan, but you think that they're not going to succeed. And maybe someone else comes to the conclusion that they believe that that particular company will succeed and that the Futureverse won't succeed. So yeah, everyone will have different opinions, and that's all well and good. And I'm sure a lot of people in this call or on this spaces believes, similar to me and Taibo, that Futureverse is a great shot to make a big difference in the world and succeed. But not
Yeah,
every
the risk to reward, right? That
right.
we're all, at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. We're figuring out that risk to reward ratio.
Yep. But everyone's gonna have different opinions and different conclusions, even if presented with the same information. That's kind of how humanity works and markets work. So, just wanted to just add that clarification.
Of course, like we look at the prices of fluffs, like most of the market and specifically the NFT market doesn't know or consider this as a really top bet play compared to Azuki or Pudgy Penguins or Doodles that are all like 7, 8+ ETH floor price. You know? So there's definitely a different sentiment um, as well, where the current ideas of what people think success is and where they have put their money at the moment.
Of course. Let's hear from IFKA JJ, who we haven't yet heard from since you joined the stage. Welcome.
Hey guys. Hey, great stuff. Yeah, I didn't want to steal the thunder from the Wilder talk and all that. I'll be there as well. With the um, the space, the podcast we had today, and I know a lot of it's speculation. There's a lot we don't know, but I was curious if anyone had any thoughts or a take on um, how root token will be um, evaluated, and if anyone had any thoughts on the type of activities or how they think that might look. I'm just curious if anyone had any thoughts.
Sure. Taibo, did you want to go first, or do you want me to go first? Or Thor?
Sorry, remember what? I had the blender going. I'm just making a nice food.
Are you making an Aussie burger?
No, this is some sort of icy smoothie that I'm working with. But yeah, what were you saying?
Well, I guess the first part is, so with Asto, we had the liquidity bootstrap auction, but it seems like Root will take a different path. I was curious how the token would be how the valuation would be established, I guess.
I think Aaron made a comment about this a while back, and basically, like, when you look at Asto as a smart contract protocol on top of a layer one blockchain, and then you look at the root network as a actual layer one, it's you have to have a different approach. I believe as well to bringing that out to the market. So I would assume we're gonna get centralized exchanges trading this as a focus compared to a traditional DEX. Not to say that they won't do both, but I think their priority isn't necessarily the LBA model or the yield farming model that you traditionally would find with a smart contract token compared to a whole layer one.
But I guess the question is, how is the initial price being decided, right?
I think that would be based off the valuation of the funding round. That could be like that would be my speculation. Like
But
They
the funding round isn't for tokens, right? It's for a share of the company.
yeah, I'm just speculating on where they would get their metrics from, and I also think that maybe Sens has something to do with their idea of checking or evaluating a price as well. Whatever the Sens price is times 12 would be my potential guess, but that's just me spitballing and guessing.
I think it's potentially too early to really even venture, I guess.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
there's something about holders of Sens could trade in for root token.
Yeah, the concept is holders of Sens can, on a one-for-one basis, trade into the root network, which there's 10 times more root tokens that there will be. Like the max amount of root tokens that there can ever be is 10 times more. So 10% of the potential root tokens could go to people redeeming SensNet tokens.
Okay.
But there is not a clear answer on what the vesting period of that might be. So yeah, it could be a long time. It could be immediate. I don't think anything official has been announced in that regard.
And hopefully they're coming up with mechanics or measures where we don't replicate ASTO with the dump on the market, or do you think that is unavoidable, or does that even matter?
It matters. Number one.
there's
Tybo, go ahead.
market conditions. There's market conditions that decide so many different factors to why that could be, right? Like Asto had the LBA. It also had 15% being unlocked over time. Like I think it was 6 million Asto tokens unlocked every week. We also had next to no utility besides staking for Asto Energy for speculative brains. But when you got a layer one blockchain, I mean, you got you've got this world class company building on it. You got this like it's all about like people's beliefs and sentiment around what they think the value is worth. Should it be worth staking? And when you release that token price as well, like when you release that token and in what market conditions. But I think there could be a dump, but there's also not many tokens being released because you're going to probably have a bunch of diamond hand holders wanting to hold, and then you got a small percentage that just want to sell out and gain that capital. We're not really sure where it could go. It could go either way, but the valuations could be so small because we're still in a bear market that people aren't really like happy with selling it at that price until it becomes at a price that people are happy at selling it.
I would say there's a lot. Whoa. Tybo might be having some audio issues.
Sorry, there was a phone call. I canceled it. But
Gotcha. I would say that with Asto, I think the biggest issue, and this isn't the only issue, there are numerous issues, but the biggest issue is they released a token that doesn't do anything yet. So will it do something in the future? Yes. Does it do anything now? I mean, not really. Right now, the only thing you do with it is earn another token-like thing that isn't a token that you can use to mine Gen 2 brains that don't do anything. So I think the biggest issue with why the value of Asto was down only was because there's nothing to do with it. So it's purely based off a rather small group of people deciding that they think it will be worth something in the future. And I think the same mistake could be made with the root network or the root token on the root network. And I'm hoping the team can avoid that. So I think what is really important is that there are things to do with that token immediately. And you're right, on a layer 1 network, there's by default, something to do with it. But other layer 1 networks that when they are released, a recent example is Aptos, they were much more widely known about, and they had a long testing period where people can interact with it, earn rewards for doing various things that serve to test on it. And like that was like long in advance of when the network went live. So within days of the network going live, there were like dozens, maybe even hundreds of NFT projects launching. And I'm sure most of them were not done in great faith, but rather trying to capitalize on the fact that, oh, there's this new network. We shouldn't have an NFT ready to go because, that's a good way to make money. Sure. But there was like a lot of incentives and people and companies that knew about this and were ready to go on it. The root network, on the other hand, yes, the plan is to be interoperable and to be open and, all these things decentralized. But the way that they want to go about it is instead of letting it be a free for all where any content can just go on there and they just don't have a role in that, just whoever wants to do whatever can do whatever. I think their idea is we want to first show a proof of concept on how this technology can be harnessed well. And then after we do that, then we open it up to whoever. But first, we want to use world-class partnerships and all these great things that we know we can get right before we allow other people to just do whatever. So because of that, I think it's important that there is a demand that comes from outside the existing echo chamber, I guess we'll call it, and that there are things to do with the token and ways to interact and functionality, and releasing a token en masse before that is a mistake.
I will say that this is not. And then just 1 second.
Life of a father. I think Tybo went to check on the smoothie. But IFK, did you want to comment on either of our responses?
That's all really awesome. Thanks for the info. Yeah, that all makes sense. It was just curiosity more than anything, and just been talking with some folks today. Just really curious how these activity mechanics to get root will work out. Just I'm sure as everyone is thinking on, and so just towards the end of the space, I was just for fun was curious if anyone had any speculation, any thoughts that they were thinking on, or we can just pin that for now and chat later.
Yeah, I also think that it's pretty unclear as to when the root token will be tradable. I mean, I'm assuming the plan is to have the ability to trade it on the root network, but also to be able to port it into other networks and also have centralized exchanges that have it. But we don't know the full extent of when each of these things is going to happen. Are they all going to happen at the same time? What's that going to look like? I think the longer we go without detailed information on that, I think the longer we can expect it, or the further into the future we can expect this all to happen, because there needs to be sufficient time to explain all of these intricacies to the people that need to hear it. And then there needs to be time for that to get disseminated. So I think the start of it, they say it's going to be next month. It could be February 42nd. I'm not sure if it's going to be in the actual month or what exactly is going to be in the actual month. Maybe it's just an announcement about what's going to happen later. But yeah, I think there's a lot more information we still need. And given that, that means it probably can't be that soon. I'm not sure if Tybo's coming back. I hope his smoothie didn't get shot across the wall or something.
All right. Sorry, I just had to. I sorted my thing out, but I was just gonna bring up. I don't want to bring up hopium or give people the wrong idea, but um, typically, what happens with if something has pretty good tokenomics, like I don't know if anyone remembers the Internet Computer token that came out, and it was basically like a dump fest for a bunch of
Down
VC.
only.
It was just pretty much down only. But then you see other L1s that come out and they maybe go down a little bit, but then like Aptos for example.
It was down
Um,
only and then pump and then lots of people shorting it.
what was that? The internet one, or you talking about Aptos?
Aptos. The
Yeah.
internet one was down only.
And then I think it was Holochain where it was like it exploded and then it was just down only for ages. So what ends up typically happening, especially when it gets on like exchanges like Binance, there'll be market makers that want to take advantage of the new coin and the new narrative and pump it and then dump it before there's actual any tied value to the network or the project. So I guess it's always important to not get manipulated by these market makers, and also take advantage of any any situations where if there's a pump that just seems unreasonable, um, you know, don't be fooled. It's just something to keep in mind. This is how the crypto industry works and how market makers use new coins to pump the shit out of it and then dump it on FOMO buyers. So yeah, just a general thought about you can take advantage of that, but like don't be fooled by it at the same time. Like the root network's getting noticed. Like this is the next best thing since sliced bread, and then it just dumps to the floor again. Like it's always good to keep your wits about you when a new coin comes out and the market makers take advantage of it.
Yeah, it's very easy when you're in an echo chamber that when price goes up or when sentiment goes positive to be like, oh, it's happening, it's happening. But the reality is, if you are able to keep a balanced um, view and you're able to eliminate that bias, you can have a more clear picture into what the reality is.
I mean,
Good
Root
point.
Token does have something going for it post claim that most other tokens don't have for it, which is there are no pre-sales of this token. And when you're talking about large whales or investors or people that threw $1 million at this a year ago and now their tokens are vesting, I mean that's what really moves the market. So if we're not going to have to face the uphill battle of buying up investor bags, just one thing on the positive side.
Yep.
Yeah, the tokenomics on the root network and the way that it sounds like it's being distributed seem really good. Like even the team aren't going to touch their 15% for at least a long time by the sounds of it, specifically because they're locked up for like, I think 4 years or 2 years. And even the advisors have theirs locked up. I just think the early contributors are the only ones that don't have tokens locked up. And I think that was XRP and a few others who are providing that deep liquidity, and in return, in exchange for offering a service and providing all that XRP and all that, I think they're getting some root. But that seems like a reasonable thing to happen, and 5% is a very tiny amount, and I don't see them selling anytime soon either, and probably would rather be validators for this network because that will get them rewarded in XRP. So it's a co-beneficial relationship with XRP and Ripple in my eyes.
Fair enough. So anyway, this Wilder space is starting in 19 minutes, so I think we should start to wrap up. Did anyone have any closing comments that they wanted to make?
Just a little recommendation that it's probably worth checking out. I know a lot of folks here are in the Futureverse, but Wilder World has many ties, many hashtags that get retweeted by the founders of Futureverse, many things. So it's all speculation, but might be worth checking it out. And based off of the leaks, it's probably going to blow some minds.
Yeah, I just want to close out and say thanks everybody for coming. I appreciate everybody showing up and sharing the spaces and whatnot. Just excited for the future and think we got a lot of cool stuff in the works. So, bunnies up.
Oh, we forgot to talk about fluffs.
I got the coolest fluff ever recently, and I'm stoked
No,
about
I
it.
said we forgot to talk about. No, the fluffs with 2 Fs.
Oh
We're
yeah,
not talking about that.
Yeah, I'm gonna get kicked out.
they're pretty cute
Nah.
though, right?
Nah, we're not going there. But they are kind of cute.
They're kind of cute. I
Gotta
don't
give
know
them that.
anything about the team. I don't know much about it. I just think they're kind of cute.
I think they're just a typo.
Anyway,
I don't know. I think that looks like the correct way to spell fluff for me. I don't know.
it is the
Nah.
correct way to spell the word fluff in the English dictionary. Or the Merriam-Webster dictionary, or most other dictionaries you might find. Okay, let's wrap it up before we run out of time. So I wanted to thank everyone that came or that's listening on replay. Thanks everyone that participated. Big thanks to our guest this week, Schiller. And as per usual, you can find the recording to this space as soon as it ends on my Twitter. And we'll be back next week with hopefully more exciting content and guests. Thanks, everybody.
Ooh, ooh.